After the awful news that basketball legend Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash along with 8 others.
Breaking news to bring you out of California, where we're learning that 5 people have been killed in a helicopter crash in Calabasas.
There is a photograph that exists somewhere in the memory of a quiet Newport Beach morning. A father and his 13-year-old daughter standing side by side in a nearly empty church, taking communion before the sun had fully burned through the January fog. No cameras, no crowds, no screaming arenas or flashing lights. Just a man and his little girl, sharing a small, ordinary, sacred moment before the start of what was supposed to be a completely normal Sunday. Within 2 hours, both of them would be gone, and the world would never be the same. This is the story of the final 48 hours of Kobe Bryant. Not the highlight reel, not the 81-point game or the 5 championship parades or the retirement tour that shut down arenas across the country. This is the story of the last 2 days of an ordinary man living what had become an extraordinarily peaceful life. A man who had finally, after 2 decades of relentless war with the game of basketball, figured out how to just be happy.
I remember asking him, was he ready to retire? I was like, how is it? He's like, he was the happiest he's been. And, getting the opportunity to see his kids, his girls grow up, helping his daughter figure out the game. And he said that's when he said he was at his happiest.
What brings you the most joy right now?
Being with my family.
Really?
That is the most fun.
And to understand why that last morning cuts so deep, why grown men still go silent when they talk about it, you have to understand exactly where Kobe Bryant was standing in his life when the clock started ticking down. Because he was not a broken legend chasing a fading spotlight. He was not bitter about getting older or resentful of the players rising up behind him. He had done something almost no superstar athlete ever manages to do. He had walked away clean, at peace, and then he had built something entirely new.
I think the definition of greatness is to inspire the people next to you. I think that's what greatness is or should be. It's not something that lives and dies with one person. It's how can you inspire a person to then in turn inspire another person, that then inspires another person. And that's how you create something that I think lasts forever.
Kobe Bean Bryant was born on August the 23rd, 1978 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The son of an NBA player. A kid who grew up partly in Italy, learning the game in gymnasiums an ocean away from the country that would one day worship him. He came into the league straight out of high school in 1996, a 17-year-old boy with an absurd amount of confidence and a work ethic that would eventually become the stuff of legend.
Guarded by Bryant. Takes him inside and banks it home.
I just remember Kobe, a young lion. He was like, you know how young lion is hunt? Like, man, I can get out there and get me a kill. You know what I mean? Just put me in the game, coach. He was over there hungry. Oh, he was over there hungry. I just seen it in his eyes, right? So when he got in the game, he was real, I'm just gonna say it, wild.
Over the next 20 years, he would carve his name into the sport permanently. 5 NBA titles, 2 finals MVPs, a league MVP award, 18 All-Star selections, 2 Olympic gold medals, 33,643 career points.
Here he is over Jackson. How good is this kid?
And there's Kobe Bryant. Huge. Kobe wants to silence those who aren't cheering for the U.S.
Olympic champion, the United States of America.
I shot 5 air balls on national TV in front of millions of people that cost us the series, and I'm 18. I'm fine, dude. You kind of got to get over yourself. Like, it's not about you, man. Like, oh, okay, you feel embarrassed. You're not that important. Like, get over yourself.
Yep. Numbers that place him firmly in the conversation for the greatest to ever pick up a basketball. But the numbers were never really the point with Kobe. The point was the obsession. The point was what he called the Mamba mentality, a philosophy built around the idea that greatness is not a talent you are given, but a debt you pay off one brutal 4 a.m. workout at a time. He was famous for arriving at gyms before the sun came up, famous for shooting 1,000 jumpers before his teammates had finished breakfast.
I don't score 1 point the entire summer. I remember crying about it and being upset about it, and my father just gave me a hug and said, listen, whether you score 0 or score 60, I'm gonna love you no matter what.
Wow.
Now that is the most important thing that you can say to a child. Because from there, I was like, okay, that gives me all the confidence in the world to fail. I have the security there. But to hell with that, I'm scoring 60. Let's go. Right.
He took me out to eat, and I said, what you getting ready to do?
Hit it.
I'm going to the club. And he said, I'm going to the gym. And that was him. That's what made, that greatness. That's where that greatness came from, because his work ethic.
Second and 9, we on the track before the sun comes up. And then we lift weights so hard that I can't lift my arms. You want me to go shoot a basketball right now? Like, his grind was sick.
He treated the game like a discipline, almost a religion, and he demanded that everyone around him treat it the same way.
So at 13 years old, I had a kill list, Street and Smith basketball rankings. And I was nowhere to be found because I was like 6'4", scrawny. So I was like 57 on the list. And so I will look at 56, 55, all the way up to number 1. When we go on an AAU travel circuit, I got to hunt them down, right? And so that became my mission in high school, is to check off every other person, all those 56 other names, hunt them down and knock them down.
He came into the locker room and he said, from now on out, every time down the court, I touch the ball. Y'all gonna learn what it's like to play with Kobe Bean.
How y'all gonna wear these shoes and y'all soft ain't what we do here in LA.
Just start grabbing people's shoes and just throw them all in the trash.
Until y'all get it right, y'all can't wear no Kobe's.
That intensity made him one of the most polarizing athletes of his generation. People either loved him or they could not stand him. There was very little in between. But even his fiercest critics never questioned the work, never questioned the will.
The fans boo you. Absolutely love it. I thrive. They don't understand who I am. Not only am I comfortable being an outsider, that has become a source of motivation for me. So when I go to these places and you boo, it actually comforts me. Yeah.
And then in 2016, at the age of 37, he simply stopped. He wrote a poem called Dear Basketball, a farewell letter to the game he loved, and he retired.
Writing Dear Basketball, that was a hard jump. I didn't know if I could do it, man. It was my daughter who kind of put things in perspective for me, Gianna. She's now 13, and she was like, well, you always tell us to go for it. She put me on the spot. She was like, you gonna talk about it? You gonna be about it, basically. And, and that gave me the final push.
I realized I hadn't really had a chance to speak to the game itself. And so I decided that was going to be my focus. And once I had that focus, the words came pretty quickly. I actually wrote 2 drafts within about 30 minutes.
On his final night, in his final game, his body aching and his legs nearly gone, he scored 60 points. Perfect, impossible, cinematic goodbye.
He walks off this floor for the final time. And tonight, he shut down Matty, in the second half. He had 30 at the half.
I remember being in the tunnel with Kobe the last time he would wear his purple and gold. Kobe fist bumped each of his daughters before he ran out the tunnel, and in Mamba speak said something like, here's what you do when the world tells you you can't do it anymore. Kobe's 60 points and win that night is only outshined by his love for his family as the world's greatest girl dad.
Most athletes fade after that. They chase broadcasting deals or business ventures, and slowly, quietly, the spotlight moves on without them. Kobe did something different. Kobe reinvented himself completely. He turned that farewell poem into an animated short film, and in 2018, that film won him an Academy Award. Let that sink in for a moment. A man who spent 20 years as one of the most dominant physical competitors on the planet won an Oscar in retirement.
This is not supposed to happen. I'm supposed to play basketball. I thought it was actually going to be easier because you're not in control. There's no direct competition going on, right? Where you're affecting the outcome. And then to actually win it, I remember winning it and just looking at my wife and going, what the f***? All right, this happened. And I remember after we won it, we got in the car and, it was like a late night, right? So we got hanging out and stuff. It was like 4 a.m, we're in the car going back and I look at my wife and I go, now we gotta follow this shit up.
He founded a company called Granity Studios and started writing children's books that topped the bestseller lists. He built a training facility called the Mamba Sports Academy. He invested, he mentored, he created.
it means greater than infinity. The most important thing you can do is to pay everything that you've learned forward to the next generation to come. We write stories that come from the heart, and our characters are going to look like my daughters, because my daughters don't have characters out there that look like them.
But more than anything else, he became a father. A full-time, hands-on, deeply present father to 4 daughters. And in those final years, his entire world seemed to orbit around one of them in particular. His second oldest, Gianna. Gigi, as everyone called her, was 13 years old and she had inherited her father's fire. She wanted to play in the WNBA. She had the footwork, the fundamentals, the stubborn competitive streak that made her father famous.
Gigi had so much of her dad's skill set. You could tell the amount of hours they spent in the gym, practicing her moves. She smiled all the time, but when it was game time, she was ready to kill.
Gigi was motivated to change the way everyone viewed women in sports. She wrote papers in school defending women and wrote about how the unequal pay difference for the NBA and WNBA leagues wasn't fair.
And Kobe threw himself into coaching her with the exact same obsessive energy he had once poured into his own career. He started a girls' basketball team. He called them the Mambas. He drew up plays, ran practices, and spent his weekends courtside, teaching a group of 13-year-old girls the same principles that had made him a champion. People who saw him in that gym said they had never seen him happier.
Kobe talked constantly about his dream to create the best youth girls basketball team on the planet, and he did. It started with his individual work with Gigi and quickly spread to all the girls on Team Mamba.
When I coach my daughter's team, it's not about giving them answers. It's about asking them questions and getting them to process things.
The killer competitor, the man who once seemed to carry the weight of an entire franchise on his shoulders, had turned into a laughing, patient, endlessly proud dad. He even had a name for his relationship with his girls. When people asked whether he was disappointed that he never had a son to carry on his basketball legacy, he pushed back immediately. He would say that Gianna was his legacy, that she was the one who was going to carry the torch. Girl dad, that was the phrase. 2 words that would come to mean something enormous in the days after he was gone.
I love my girls. They're awesome, man.
Kobe was the MVP of girl dads, or MVD. He was a doting father, a father that was hands-on and present. He happily did carpool and enjoyed spending time in the car with our girls.
So that is where Kobe Bryant was in January of 2020. 41 years old, rich, respected, and finally genuinely at peace. He had made his money. He had settled old grudges. He had found a second act more meaningful than the first. He was building a future centered entirely on his family and the next generation of athletes he wanted to inspire.
If you can win championships in front of everybody, then you can miss the playoffs in front of everybody.
He had everything to live for, which is exactly what makes the next 48 hours so unbearable to walk through. It begins on Saturday, the 25th of January. That night, 3,000 miles away from his home in California, back in the city where he was born, something was about to happen that would tie a perfect, poetic bow around Kobe's career. And it would set the stage for the very last public words he would ever speak. The Los Angeles Lakers were in Philadelphia, playing the 76ers, and the entire basketball world was watching for one specific reason. LeBron James, the man who had inherited the mantle of the league's biggest star, was closing in on a record. He needed just 18 points to pass Kobe Bryant for 3rd place on the NBA's all-time scoring list. Think about the symbolism. LeBron chasing down Kobe's mark in Kobe's hometown, in the same city where a young Bryant had grown up dreaming of the NBA. And LeBron understood exactly what the moment meant. Before the game, he took a marker and wrote 2 words on his sneakers: Mamba for life, a tribute to the man whose record he was about to break.
I remember one thing that he said, he was like, if you want to try to be, great at it or want to be one of the greats, you got to put the work in. There's no substitution work. Now I'm here in the Lakers uniform in Philadelphia, where he's from. It's surreal. It doesn't make no sense. So I wrote on my shoes tonight. I think I put Mamba for life, 824 KB, because it's really that mutual.
Midway through the 3rd quarter, LeBron drove to the basket for a simple layup, and it was done. He had passed Kobe.
There's James. Goes across the lane, lays it up, and lays it in. And there it is. He just became the third leading scorer in NBA history, passing Kobe Bryant.
The Philadelphia crowd, a crowd that had every reason to root against a visiting Laker, rose to its feet and gave him a standing ovation anyway, because they knew they were watching history touch history. That layup gave LeBron 33,644 points. One more than Kobe's career total, and back in California, Kobe was paying attention. At 18 minutes past 8 that evening Pacific time, he opened his phone and typed out a message to the world. He congratulated LeBron on the achievement. He told him to keep moving the game forward. He called him his brother and said he had much respect for him. And he ended it with a hashtag, the number 33,644. The exact point total LeBron had needed to pass him. It was a classy, gracious message from one legend to another. The kind of thing a man sends when he has completely made peace with his place in history and feels nothing but goodwill toward the person surpassing him. Nobody reading it that night had any idea it would be the last thing Kobe Bryant ever posted. The final words he would ever share publicly with the millions of people who had followed his every move for 24 years. And here is what makes that final message so haunting. Just days earlier, Kobe had sat down for what would turn out to be his last in-depth interview. And in it, a reporter had asked him how he felt about LeBron, closing in on his record. Kobe's answer revealed everything about the man he had become. He said that you should be happy for the person who comes after you and surpasses what you accomplished. He said thinking any other way was juvenile. That was the mindset.
That these championships do come and go, right? And there'll be other people that win championships. But the most important thing you can do is to pay everything that you learned forward to the next generation to come. And that's truly how you create something that lasts forever.
No ego, no bitterness. Just a man who had climbed the mountain, planted his flag, and was now content to watch the next climber pass him by with a smile on his face. He went to sleep that Saturday night a happy man. He had no idea he had roughly 13 hours left. Sunday, the 26th of January, dawned gray and foggy over Southern California. The kind of thick, low-hanging marine layer that rolls in off the Pacific and swallows the hills. It was heavy enough that morning that the Los Angeles Police Department made a decision that would later feel like a terrible warning. They grounded their own helicopter fleet. The visibility was simply too poor to fly safely.
The weather Sunday morning bad enough that police departments did not fly their own helicopters, but Bryant's took off in heavy fog. How thick was that fog?
It was thick. Imagine jumping into a pool filled with milk and opening your eyes.
But Kobe had a full day planned, and it was a day built entirely around his daughter. Gianna's basketball team had a tournament that afternoon, a youth game scheduled for noon at his own Mamba Sports Academy up in Thousand Oaks. Kobe was going to coach, Gigi was going to play, and to beat the notorious Los Angeles traffic and make the most of the day, they were going to fly. Kobe traveled by helicopter often. It was a habit that dated back to his playing days, a way to save time and preserve his body from the endless hours of sitting in gridlocked freeways.
For years, Bryant regularly commuted by helicopter to avoid LA traffic and have more time with his family.
I had to figure out a way where I could still train and focus on the craft, but still not compromise family time. Not coming to LA if I don't have the Mamba chop. The 405 and me do not get along. I drive him to school every morning though.
He used a Sikorsky S-76B, a well-maintained aircraft flown by a pilot he knew and trusted named Ara Zobayan. Zobayan was experienced, certified, and had flown Kobe many times before. There was nothing unusual about the arrangement. This was routine. But before any of that, before the flight, before the game, Kobe did something that has stayed with people ever since. He and Gianna went to church. Early that morning, the two of them slipped into a quiet Catholic service near Newport Beach. Father and daughter sitting together, taking communion in the soft gray light. It was not a photo opportunity or a public appearance. It was simply a private moment of faith between a dad and his girl. The kind of small, tender ritual that fills a family's life and usually goes completely unremembered. Except this one would be remembered forever, because it was one of the last things they ever did.
Do you remember where you were on that foggy, sunless morning of January 26th when the axis of the world seemed to shift forever for all of us? I was in Sunday church with my family. I felt a sudden urge to check my phone. I slipped it out of my jeans and discovered the text was from Kobe, explaining his desire to help a friend of his secure a baseball agency internship for one of his young daughters. A handful of minutes later, Kobe and Gianna and 7 other beautiful souls ascended into heaven. Kobe had been texting me from the helicopter. The girl in that text chain that he was wanting to help so badly was Lexi Altobelli, the surviving daughter of Coach John Altobelli. Kobe's last human act was heroic.
From the church, the plan came together. Others were joining them for the day. This was not just Kobe and Gianna. It was a whole group of families connected by that same girls' basketball team, all headed to the same tournament. There was John Altobelli, a beloved college baseball coach with decades of experience shaping young athletes, his wife Carrie, and their daughter Alyssa, who played alongside Gianna on the Mambas. There was Christina Mauser, a gifted assistant coach who helped Kobe run the team, a wife and a mother of 3. And there was Sarah Chester and her daughter Peyton, another young player on that same squad. 9 people in total, including the pilot. 3 of them 13-year-old girls with their entire lives ahead of them, laughing and excited about a basketball game, parents and coaches giving up their Sunday to support their kids. An ordinary group of people doing an ordinary, beautiful thing, showing up for children they loved. At 6 minutes past 9 that morning, the helicopter lifted off from John Wayne Airport in Orange County and turned toward the north. The rotors cut through the damp morning air. Below them, the freeways were already filling with the traffic they were flying over. The plan was simple: a short hop up the coast over the sprawl of Los Angeles and into the hills of Thousand Oaks. A flight that should have taken well under an hour. For the first several minutes, everything was completely normal. The aircraft cruised north-northwest at a comfortable altitude, following a route Zobayan had flown countless times. There was nothing to suggest that this was anything other than another routine trip. But the fog was waiting. As the helicopter moved into the airspace near Burbank, that thick marine layer that had grounded the police fleet began to close in. Visibility started dropping, and the pilot, faced with worsening conditions, made a request to air traffic control. He asked for something called Special Visual Flight Rules Clearance. It is a type of permission that allows a pilot to keep flying in weather that would normally be considered too poor for visual navigation, as long as certain conditions are met and the pilot stays in close contact with the tower. Around 21 minutes past 9, the helicopter began circling over the city of Glendale, holding in place. There was other air traffic in the area, and the controllers needed the aircraft to wait before it could continue.
At 9:20, the aircraft circles near Burbank in a holding pattern.
He's been holding for about 15 minutes.
Scott Dalen witnessed the crash. You can hear the helicopter, and you can't see anything.
I can't see anything. Hearing the helicopter, all of a sudden the helicopter's immediately above me. I can hear it, but I can't see it.
So it circled, and below on the ground, an ordinary resident stepped outside his house because a helicopter was flying low enough to rattle his windows. He pulled out his phone and started filming, not having any possible way of knowing who was inside that aircraft or what was about to happen. He would later realize he had captured footage of Kobe Bryant's final flight, circling in the gray sky, roughly half an hour before the end. For several minutes, the helicopter held that pattern over Glendale. Then it was cleared to continue. The controllers told the pilot to follow the path of the Interstate 5 freeway, using the highway as a visual guide through the murk. Zobayan confirmed the instruction and pressed on, threading north through the thickening clouds. He was handed off to a new tower. The controller read him the conditions in the area, and they were not good. Visibility of about 2.5 miles, a ceiling of low overcast clouds hanging just above him, the kind of numbers that make experienced pilots uneasy. Zobayan kept flying. He asked at one point for a service called flight following, a form of radar assistance that helps a pilot navigate and avoid other aircraft. But he was told the helicopter was flying too low for the controllers to provide it. The terrain and the altitude were working against him.
Air traffic controllers informed the pilot they can't detect him on radar.
2 Echo X-ray, you're still too low level for flight following at this time.
Then came the moment everything changed. The pilot radioed that he was going to climb. He was going to take the helicopter up above the cloud layer to get out of the fog and into clearer air. It was, on its face, a reasonable decision. Rise above the weather, find the blue sky. He began the climb. The aircraft rose steadily, pushing up toward the top of the clouds. At 45 minutes past 9, he reported that he was ascending to 4,000 feet. That was the last transmission anyone on the ground ever received from him. Because inside those clouds, something went catastrophically wrong. Something that has claimed the lives of countless pilots throughout aviation history. It is a phenomenon called spatial disorientation, and it is one of the most insidious dangers in all of flight. Here is the terrible truth about flying blind inside a cloud. When a pilot loses all outside visual reference, when there is no horizon, no ground, no sky, nothing but featureless white in every direction, the human inner ear can betray you completely. Your body starts sending your brain false signals about which way is up. You can feel like you are flying straight and level when you're actually banking hard into a turn. You can feel like you are climbing when you are diving toward the earth. Your own senses become the enemy. And unless you are trained to ignore every physical instinct in your body and trust only your instruments, the disorientation can kill you in seconds. Radar data tells the story of those final moments in cold, precise numbers. The helicopter climbed to around 2,300 feet, then it banked into a left turn. And then, just 8 seconds later, it began to fall. It descended at a rapid, violent rate, plunging through the clouds toward the hills below. In the cockpit in those final seconds, the pilot almost certainly had no idea he was pointed at the ground. The disorientation had him. The mountain was rushing up to meet an aircraft whose pilot believed, in his disoriented mind, that he was doing something else entirely. Down on a mountain bike trail in the hills near Calabasas, a witness heard it coming. The sound of the rotors grew louder and louder, an engine straining somewhere up in the fog. And then the helicopter burst out of the clouds directly in his line of sight, moving fast, tilted at an angle, dropping on a steep forward trajectory. He saw it roll. He saw the belly of the aircraft, and a couple of seconds later, it struck the hillside just below where he was standing. At 45 minutes past 9 on the morning of January the 26th, 2020, the helicopter crashed into a hillside in Calabasas, roughly 30 miles northwest of downtown Los Angeles. All 9 people aboard were killed on impact.
This is a Fox News alert. Potentially some very sad news to report to you. We're getting reports that NBA star Kobe Bryant and at least 4 other people have been killed in a helicopter crash.
On behalf of the NTSB, I'd like to extend our deepest sympathies to those who lost loved ones in this tragic event. In total, we'll have a team of 18 who will be investigating the accident.
We want to locate the 4 corners of the aircraft to verify that the aircraft was all intact prior to the impact.
The crash sparked a small brush fire in the surrounding hills, sending a column of dark smoke rising up through the fog. It was over in an instant. The father who had taken communion with his daughter 2 hours earlier. The 3 young girls who had been chattering about their basketball game. The coaches and parents who had given up their Sunday to support their kids. All of them gone in the time it takes to read this sentence. 2 minutes later, at 47 minutes past 9, the first emergency call reached the authorities. First responders scrambled toward the remote, smoking hillside, having no idea yet who they were about to find. The news did not stay quiet for long. Word began to leak out that a helicopter had gone down in Calabasas, and then, shortly before 11:30 that morning, the first reports appeared that Kobe Bryant may have been on board. For a few agonizing minutes, the world hoped it was a mistake, a rumor, a cruel piece of internet misinformation. It was not. The confirmation hit like a physical blow, and what followed was one of the most staggering outpourings of collective grief the sports world has ever witnessed. It did not matter what team you rooted for. It did not matter whether you had loved Kobe or spent 20 years cheering against him. The scale of the loss was simply too enormous to process. And then came the second wave. The detail that turned an unbearable tragedy into something that shattered people completely. Kobe had not been alone. His 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, the girl he was coaching, the daughter he called his legacy, had been on that helicopter with him. And so had 7 other people, including 2 more young girls and their families. At noon that day, the game the group had been flying to was still on the schedule. The Mambas were supposed to take the court at the Mamba Sports Academy in Thousand Oaks.
Among those killed, John Altobelli, a baseball coach, his wife Carrie, and their 13-year-old daughter Alyssa. Also on board, Christina Mauser, an assistant basketball coach and mother of 3.
What do you tell a child their mommy's no longer with us?
I hope you will pray for his daughter, Gianna, and for their mother, Vanessa, and for his friends who were on that flight with him, the Altobelli family, Christina Mauser's family, the Chester family, Ara Zabayan, the pilot. I can't imagine how much they are missed. There's no silver lining here. It's all bad. It's all sad.
A gym that Kobe himself had built, where he was supposed to be standing on the sideline, calling plays for his daughter. The game never happened. The families never arrived, and a facility built around a man's love for the next generation became, overnight, a site of unthinkable heartbreak. Across the country, tributes began almost immediately. That very afternoon, NBA teams honored Kobe in the most fitting way they could imagine. On their opening possessions, players intentionally let the shot clock run down, taking 24-second and 8-second violations, deliberate references to the 2 jersey numbers Kobe had worn during his career.
Before the game, we ran out the clock 24 seconds, for Kobe, and then they got a half-court violation, 8 seconds to do a tribute towards him. They just took the air out of everybody in the locker room.
Basketball is not that important right now. Everything else really doesn't matter.
The shock of the tragedy quickly spreading across the globe. NBA players openly weeping during pregame tributes.
This guy was like a Pied Piper. People would follow him everywhere just to look at him, to touch him, for him to say hello.
It was a small, powerful gesture repeated in arena after arena. A league standing still, together, in shock.
Perhaps an 8-second on the second team in tribute to Kobe Bryant's 2 retired jerseys, number 24 and number 8.
The grief did not stay inside the world of basketball, and it did not stay inside America. It spread across the entire planet with a speed that stunned even the people experiencing it. Murals of Kobe and Gianna began appearing on walls in Los Angeles, in Manila, in cities on continents where the man had never set foot. Soccer stadiums in Europe fell silent. Fans left mountains of flowers, jerseys, and handwritten notes outside the arena where he had played, a memorial that grew for days until it stretched across entire city blocks. For a man who had spent his career being one of the most divisive figures in sports, the unity of the morning was almost impossible to comprehend. In death, the argument stopped, and the world simply grieved together.
Laker Nation, man, I would be selling y'all short if I read off this shit, so I'm gonna go straight from the heart. This is a celebration of the 20 years of the blood, the sweat, the tears. So in the words of Kobe Bryant, Mamba out, but in the words of us, not forgotten. Live on, brother.
In the days and weeks that followed, the world learned the full weight of what had been lost. The medical examiner confirmed the cause of death for all 9 victims. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board descended on the hillside and began piecing together exactly what had happened. Their eventual conclusion pointed to that deadly phenomenon in the clouds. The pilot, they determined, had likely become spatially disoriented in the fog after flying into conditions he should not have entered, losing his sense of up and down until it was too late to recover. But for the millions of people grieving, the technical explanation almost did not matter. What mattered was the enormity of the absence. A father and a daughter, a coach and his players, whole families wiped out on a foggy Sunday morning on their way to a kids' basketball game. At a memorial service held weeks later, tens of thousands of people packed the arena where Kobe had spent his career. His widow stood before that crowd and spoke about the man behind the legend and the daughter she would never watch grow up. Some of the greatest names in the history of the sport wept openly on the stage, struggling to find words for a grief that had no bottom.
To me, he was Kobe, my boo-boo, my baby-boo, my papi chulo. He was my sweet husband and the beautiful father of our children. He was mine. He was my everything. Babe, you take care of our Gigi. And I got Nani, Bibi, and Coco. We're still the best team. We love and miss you, Boo-Boo and Gigi.
And in the strange way that tragedy sometimes reshapes the world, that phrase Kobe had used to describe himself took on a life of its own. Girl Dad. In the aftermath of his death, fathers all over the world began sharing photos of themselves with their daughters, using those 2 words. It became a movement, a way of honoring not the basketball player, not the champion, but the man who had found his deepest purpose in coaching a team of 13-year-old girls and telling anyone who would listen how proud he was of his Gigi.
I had many conversations with Kobe off of television, and they always involved his daughters, always. Once he retired from basketball, his life revolved around their lives. He was very proud of them. He loved being a father. He loved his family. He worked very hard, and he brought a lot of joy to a lot of people in the city. He was a bright light, and that's how I want to remember him.
That, in the end, is the part of this story that stays with people. Not the fame, not the trophies. The knowledge that in his final 48 hours, Kobe Bryant was exactly where he wanted to be. He had made peace with his rivals and his records. He had sent a gracious message to the man surpassing him and meant every word of it. He had knelt in a quiet church with his daughter on a Sunday morning, And he was on his way to do the thing he loved most in his second life, coaching his little girl. There is a cruel kind of beauty in how complete his happiness was at the end. He was not a man with unfinished business or regrets eating away at him. He had already found the thing so many people spend their whole lives searching for. He knew what mattered. He was living it fully. And then it was taken, without warning, on an ordinary morning that should have been like 1,000 others. The 48 hours from that Saturday night to that Sunday morning contain almost everything you need to understand about who Kobe Bryant really was by the end. The grace in his final message, the faith in that quiet church, the devotion in that final flight, taken not for himself but to show up for his daughter and her teammates. A man who had once been defined by ferocity, ending his story defined by love. He was 41 years old. Gianna was 13, and the 7 others who died beside them each had families, dreams, and futures of their own that ended on that hillside as well. John and Carrie and Alyssa Altobelli, Christina Mauser, Sarah and Peyton Chester, Ara Zobayan, they deserve to be remembered too. 9 lives bound together by a youth basketball team, lost on the same gray morning. Kobe Bryant spent 20 years teaching the world about the Mamba mentality, about obsession, about work, about the relentless pursuit of greatness. But the final lesson of his life came from those last 2 days, and it had nothing to do with basketball at all. It was about presence, about showing up for the people you love while you still can. About the fact that the ordinary moments, the quiet church services, and the Sunday morning drives and the youth basketball games are not the small stuff. They are the whole point.
I went upstairs and found the book in my library and opened it, and on the inside cover, he had penned with his own pen these words: "To RP, my brother, may you always remember to enjoy the road, especially when it's a hard one. Love, Kobe."
I heard his voice in my head, the last line from one of his books. "Walk until the darkness is a memory, and you become the sun on the next traveler's horizon. May their light forever shine. Kobe and Gigi, I'll love you forever."
None of the 9 people on that helicopter knew it was their last flight. Kobe did not know his tweet the night before would be his final word to the world. Gianna did not know her last game would never be played. That's the thing about the final 48 hours of anyone's life. You almost never know you are living them. So maybe the way to honor them is simple. Hug the people you love a little tighter. Show up for the game, even when the traffic is bad and the fog is heavy. Be the girl dad. Be present, because tomorrow is promised to no one. And the ordinary morning you take for granted might just be the most precious one you ever get. Rest in peace to Kobe and Gianna Bryant and all 9 souls lost that January morning. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, take a moment to remember someone you love today. And subscribe for more stories that remind us why every single moment matters.